chapter, that is food storage. Learning objectives under this chapter are develop an awareness regarding importance of food storage, understand the causes for food spoilage. Obviously, when there is storage, everybody should be aware of taking care and prevent the food spoilage as well. Become familiar with different methods of food storage. Introduction. Food storage is a traditional domestic skill and is important commercially. Food is stored by almost every human society. Every human on this earth has cultivated an habit of a food storage in order to face the future at the time of need. Considering the pandemic situation, when there was lockdown, government had issued a prescribed time so that we can get our things and keep it at home, store it, and we can utilize for the time when the shops were not open. That is one thing. Even when we are storing at home, we have to take care of some of the factors which affect them. That is one criteria. And second criteria, many of them have cultivated a traditional practice in storing some of the foods, example pickling, sun drying, which mainly removes the moisture content and increase the shelf life of the food. So which are the factors that affects the food storage? They are moisture content of foods, relative humidity, temperature, storage structure, storage period, processing, hygienic conditions, etc. So these factors should be taken into consideration at the time of food storage. For safe and scientific storage, it is important to carefully select the storage site, storage structure, undertake cleaning and fumigation, ensure proper aeration of grains followed by regular inspection of grain store. Government has undertaken in storing some of the foods that are cultivated in the field of agriculture, especially considering the farmers' effort. So all these food grains are stored in the go down carefully, and it is transported from one place to another and reached the consumer securely, safely with the whole quality. Long-term food storage is important for personal readiness and survival. As I've told you initially, it also helps us at the time of need and also helps us at the time of survival, and also with the concern of possible unemployment or income loss, especially when someone loses their job or when there is some financial crisis at home. If you have planned well and stored food, definitely it will help you to face it commercially. Natural disaster, even at those times, these food storage will definitely have a major role to play. National food shortage or other emergency situation, food storage mainly helps us to face these problems. Storing of food has several main purposes. So what is the main purpose for food storage? Storage of harvested and processed plant and animal food products for distribution to consumers. So every consumer, every people, every human on this earth, food serves as one of the basic needs for them to survive or live a life. So here it has to be reached to the consumers, first thing, and secondly enabling availability throughout the year. So throughout the year it takes care that there is no scarcity or shortage of food to be supplied to the consumer, and then reducing kitchen waste by preserving unused or uneaten food for later use. So that is where the reuse of foods that are remaining, so that also helps you in facing some of the shortages at home, like reducing the kitchen waste by preserving unused or uneaten food for later use, and preparedness for emergencies and periods of food scarcity or famine, protection from animals or theft. Management of the food economy of the country involves various activities such as procurement of food grains, building up and maintenance of food stocks, their storage, movement and delivery to the distributing agency. So these are some of the main purposes why food storing is done. Food production chain. Here, food production chain provides the link between primary producer and the consumer through intermediaries such as processors, manufacturers, ingredient suppliers, marketing organizations, wholesalers and retailers. Here you can mainly see the path how from the farmer it reaches to the production, and then it undergoes some processing, and then it is distributed through marketing practices. After distribution it is transported either to retailers or to the restaurants. From retailers the consumers will purchase and they undergo home preparation, and home consumers will consume the food. Or from the restaurant preparations are done, and then the restaurant consumers consume the food. This is the pathway of food production chain. And the food supply chain connects three main sectors. So which are those sectors? The first one is the agricultural sector, the second one is the food processing industry, and the third one is the distribution sectors, either it is wholesale or retail. The post harvest sectors include all points in the value chain from production in the field to the food being placed on a plate for consumption. The chain includes activities like harvesting, handling, storage, processing, packaging, transportation, and marketing until it reaches to the consumer. So, basic agricultural commodities undergo series of intermediate alternation before they are sold as final food product to the consumer. So there are so much of alternations that is made, and also care is taken at the time of harvesting, handling, storage, processing, packaging, transporting, and marketing. In the future classes you will be understanding about some of, as I told you, there are some of the factors which mainly affects food storage. So care is definitely a very big concern at the time of food storage. Post-harvest food loss. A food loss refers to total modification or decrease of food quantity or quality which makes it unfit for human consumption. Losses are a measurable reduction in foodstuffs and may affect either quantity or quality. So we consider both quality and quantity. So at the time of food storage, due to many factors, the quality and the quantity may be reduced. So quantitative loss is a loss in terms of physical substances, meaning a reduction in weight and volume, and can be assessed and measured. So physical loss is somewhere there is reduction in the weight or reduction in the volume, and it can be assessed and measured as well. And how about the qualitative loss? However, is concerned particularly with nutritional composition of the food. So here somewhere chemically we undergo some test in order to check the quality of the food. They arise from the fact that freshly harvested agricultural produce is a living thing that breathes and undergoes changes during post-harvest handling. So soon after the cultivation, after getting the crop yield, definitely there are certain factors which affects. So freshly available definitely has a good quality. As the timeline increases or the time increases in food storage, its quality comes down. There is reduction in the quality of the food, and also there is noticeable change in the nutritional composition of the food. Here is an image which is showing about the post-harvest changes. What happens here? Post-harvest food losses. So the food pipeline. After receiving it from the producer, pre-processing is done where broken grains, executive dehulling, trimming can be noticed, and then at the time of transportation, what will happen? See, these are something post-harvest loss we are speaking. So at the time of processing, broken grains, excessive dehulling, trimming is done. At the time of transportation, there can be spillage or bruising, breakage, leakage. And at the time of heat or storage, insects, mold, bacteria, because temperature also has a greater effect in storage. High temperature, low temperature, moderate temperature, how it affects on the food. So insects, mold, bacteria, rodents, birds, sprouting, rancidity, over-ripening, and then processing packages are here: inefficiency, excessive peeling, trimming and polishing, marketing, unsafe foods and quality losses. Above you can see how heat, rain or humidity contaminations do affect some of the food storage as well. So finally we get the finished product to the consumers, and how well, whether the quality and quantity is the same, So considering all these factors, we have to purchase a product. Different types of losses. So what are the different types of losses? The first one, the direct and indirect loss. Direct losses occur when the disappearance of a foodstuff is caused by leakage, for example, spillage from bags, or consumption by pests, insects, rodents, birds, whereas indirect loss occurs when a reduction in quality leads to the consumer's refusal to purchase. So direct loss is where there is physical loss that is taking place in the weight and volume of the food product. Indirect loss is something where it relates to the quality, where there is change in nutritional composition or there is deterioration in the quality of the food, which in turn results in the rejection or refusal of the consumer's purchase. The second one is the damage. Damage is a clear deterioration in the product. Example, broken or pitted grain, which affects more its quality when its quantity and can in the long term result in a definite loss. Both damage and loss should be quantified in terms of weight and cost. So at the time of transportation, these mechanical damages may happen, or even at the time of processing, these things may occur. So this is another kind of loss, damage to the food product, brokenness, or even it affects the quality and quantity of the food. Next, weight loss. While weight loss is easy to observe and measure, it does not necessarily mean food loss since it can result simply from a reduction in moisture content. If you consider rice, the older the rice becomes, I think the moisture content reduces, thereby reducing in the weight loss as well. But that doesn't mean the quality of the rice has come down, so it depends on the moisture content of the food. But considering the other food groups like fruits and vegetables, if the moisture content comes down, then what happens? The quality decreases. So it varies from one food group to other. Quality loss, quality criteria covers a wide range and are concerned both with external features, shape and size, and with the odor and taste. Considering these external features such as the shape and size, only fruits and vegetables appear to be whole and does not have any damage or marks on it, and also it shouldn't be rotting producing a bad odor, and it should taste good as well. See, fruits we expected to be sweet, and vegetables we expected to be fresh and tender in order to purchase it. Otherwise the consumers, they simply deny in the purchasal of that food. Secondly, seed viability loss. Seeds set aside for sowing, like any product used for reproduction, is preserved with great care in order to maintain its full germination potential. So seeds that are preserved in order to be sowed and to expecting it to get a good yield, so that seed have to be preserved very carefully so that it is not affected by any of the factors which will spoil its nutritional composition. Commercial loss. Commercial loss is the translation of the various types of loss listed above into economic and monetary terms. So obviously at the time of food storage, the financial loss or the aspects considering in regard with the finance, so we have to consider that, and some of the losses which will in turn lead to economic and monetary terms. Post-harvest loss reduction technology. There are many ways to reduce post-harvest loss. So it comprises of the usage of optimum harvest factors, reduction of losses in handling, packaging, transportation and storage with the modern infrastructures and machineries, processing into a wide variety of products, home-scale preservation with low-cost technology. Here is nothing but application of technology under food storage. And then use of thermal processing, low temperature drying, chemical and biological reactions coupled with other preservation techniques are applied to enhance the storability. Containers and packaging materials provide portability as well as extend the shelf life. So some of the factors which affects the food storage, considering those aspects and applying technology to it, and in turn mainly helps in the portability as well as extending or increasing the shelf life of the food product. So adoption of these techniques could make available a large quantity of food by avoiding losses and provide better quality food and nutrition. More raw materials for processing, thus ensuring better return to the farmers. As we continue, the next topic, food spoilage. Food spoilage can be defined as decomposition or damage causing undesirable changes in the food, making food unsuitable for consumption. Such changes can be detected by smell, taste, touch, or sight. So, using your sense organ, you can easily identify whether the food is spoiled or not, making it undesirable or unsuitable for consumption. So easily through your naked eyes you can identify the development of molds, the development of microorganisms, or the change in color or size of the food products, making it unsuitable for consumption. And also the production of bad odor or even the texture may change. Through your sight you can easily identify the food is spoiled. Let's see some of the causes for food spoilage. So causes of food spoilage are, so food spoilage is mainly due to undesirable change caused by microorganisms or due to some of the enzymatic reactions or chemical reactions or some external factors like insects, rodents, and climatic variations of temperature and relative humidity too leads in food spoilage. First one, air and oxygen. One important cause of food spoilage is air and oxygen. It can provide conditions that will enhance the growth and microorganisms and cause damage to foods with the help of enzymes due to oxidation. So air and oxygen definitely serves as one medium for microorganisms growth and development. So when the food is exposed to the air or oxygen, due to some of the enzymatic reactions, in turn leads to food spoilage. So one good example we can consider is butter. So the reaction that takes place over there is oxidation. So butter when easily or directly exposed to the air or oxygen, oxidation takes place, which in turn leads to spoilage, especially that is fat and fatty acids or foods that is present in it, butyric acid, and due to oxidation of lipids, the compound formed have very strong odors, making the food undesirable and unacceptable. So it produces a bad odor, which in turn not that appealing to consume and turns poisonous too. Eating that will affect your health. So this is one reaction that takes place when food is directly exposed to air. Temperature. When the temperature are not properly controlled, food can spoil. Excessive heat will increase the rate of natural food enzymatic reactions and also reactions of other food constituents, resulting in denaturation of proteins, destruction of vitamins, and loss of moisture. As a result, the color, flavor, and odor of the food products changes through physical spoilage. So temperature, when there is fluctuation in temperature, you can see during summers most of the cooked foods get spoiled very soon because that heat will cause some of the enzymatic changes in the food, there in turn making it undesirable for consumption. And then fruits and vegetables too, when it is exposed or kept for a long time, either there is reduction of moisture or there is some development of molds that takes place or development of microorganism which leads to food spoilage. And protein, especially milk or meat products, when kept outside, when it is not refrigerated, definitely there is spoilage that is noticeably occurring, and then it leads to some of the undesirable changes, undesirable odor, making it unacceptable to eat. Next, considering moisture, water or moisture greatly affects the keeping qualities of food. So the preservation. Microorganisms need water to dissolve the food they use. Water allows the food get into bacterial, yeast and mold cells where it is used for energy and growth. So here moisture mainly serves as a medium for the growth and development of microorganisms. Considering some of the citrus fruits or some other fruits and vegetables where you can see the development of molds or bacterial yeast on the surface, which in turn they utilize that moisture for their growth and development, and as well as utilizing it for their energy. So microorganisms, air, soil, sewage and animal waste are the general sources of food spoilage microorganisms. Some of the microorganisms that are naturally present on the surface of foods grown in the ground can also cause food spoilage. So when it is directly kept on the ground or on the slab, due to their presence on the surface itself will cause some of the food spoilage. So most of the time we suggest to keep all the foodstuffs covered, kept clean, or keep it in dry and cool place for this reason, that to avoid or to prevent the microorganism reactions that takes place. Next, enzymes. So certain enzymes that are naturally present in food are known as oxidizing enzymes. These enzymes catalyze, which means they speed up or they increase the rate of the chemical reactions between oxygen and food components, leading to food spoilage. So this is another example. The previous examples that I gave you is butter. You can consider that itself for enzymatic reaction and its spoilage. Light. The exposure of food to light can result in the photodegradation or spoilage, which usually occurs in constituent of food such as pigments, proteins, fat and vitamin, resulting in discoloration of flavor, development and loss of nutrients. So usually sunlight definitely helps in some of the food preservation, but then it also leads to some of the food spoilage as well, considering the pigments or proteins, fats and vitamins, especially fruits and vegetables. So a discoloration can be noticed or off flavor can be noticed, and also some of the nutrient loss can also be noticed. Insects, rodents and pests. During storage, quantitative as well as qualitative losses occur due to insects, rodents and microorganisms due to their fecal discharge or due to their ingestion of the foodstuffs, therein contaminating the food that is preserved, leading to food spoilage. A large number of insect pests are reported to be associated with stored grains. So most of the stored grains are affected with these rodents and insects. Coming to the next subtopic, that is the method of food storage. So which are the method that we consider in food storage? The first is storage of food in warehouses. Second, storage during transportation, storage of processed foods, and then finally household food storage. Storage of food in warehouses. Here, bulk storage of produce is done in warehouses. So government, either private or government, both they undertake in storing some of the food that is produced in the market in order to supply to the consumer in the long run. So it is stored in warehouses where care has to be taken so that there is no ingestion or contamination from any of the pests or any of the insects. Warehouses are scientific storage structures especially constructed for the production of the quantity and quality of stored products. The warehouses are owned by FCI, that is Government Owned Food Corporation of India, CWC, Central Warehouse Corporation, they fall into the central government, or the SWC, this falls into the state government, that is State Warehouse Corporation. The Central Warehousing Corporation provides safe and reliable storage facilities for about 120 agricultural and industrial commodities. It is the largest public warehouse operator in the country. It also offers services in the area of cleaning, handling and transportation, procurement and distribution, disinfection services, fumigation services and other additional activities, etc. Safety, security and insurance are their main criteria in storing the food in warehouses. So their main aim is to protect this food from any of the contamination just as mentioned, and also take care of the cleaning, handling and transportation, proper distribution and disinfection services, fumigation services and other additional activities as well. So kindly remember the abbreviation of these government sectors which mainly takes care in storing the food by building up warehouses, that is FCI, CWC, SWC. So abbreviations can be asked for 1 mark, or even for 2 marks, 3 marks they may ask you to write a note on storage of food in warehouses. Best practices of food warehousing. So what are those practices? Well organized and allow for segregation of raw materials from finished products. So by segregating these raw materials from finished products can also avoid some of the cross contaminations. Next, inspected regularly. So when there is regular checkup or regular inspections, this may also lead to proper maintenance of quality and quantity of the food that is stored. Clean and dry, definitely hygiene plays a major role in preventing some of the microorganism development and some insect ingestion as well. Well illuminated, so light and air. So when especially grains are stored, light and air, when light is allowed into the room, you can easily absorb some of the contaminations or some of the insect infestations that is taking place, which in turn you can be proactive in keeping it clean. So well illumination, so proper light in the room helps in keeping things well organized. Fumigated and protected from pests, condensation, that is water accumulation, dust or fumes and odors. So fumigation too helps in maintaining the quantity and quality of the food that is stored. Stock control in food warehouses. So stock control of food is important to the total supply chain to ensure safety, quality and waste management. Effective and accurate inventory records and stock control systems should be maintained to ensure traceability systems. So maintaining even here the safety, quality and quantity of the food, and as well waste management, which in turn helps in maintaining the stock control. So different stock control approaches are FIFO, that is first in, first out. So the one that is into the warehouse, we should make sure that it is immediately supplied to the market. So this is a system to ensure raw materials and processed goods used in the same sequence as they are received. And then FEFO, that is first expired, first out. So you have to notice the expiry date, and then you have to make sure that the stock is cleared before the expiry date approaches. So this system ensures dispatch of products which have the earliest expiration date first. This approach helps to control freshness of the food produced and helps to minimize waste in the supply chain. So you have to remember these different stock control approaches, that is FIFO and FEFO. So first in, first out, and second one is first expired, first out. Storage during transportation. So the previous one what we observed is storage in warehousing. So here storage during transportation. So what are the precautionary measures that has to be taken at the time of transportation here? Food must be adequately protected during transport. So it is not that you are overburdening yourself or you are filling too much that it is expelled and wasted all throughout the road. So it has to be adequately protected. The type of conveyances or containers required depending on the nature of the food and the conditions under which it is has to be transported. So you have to make sure that which food is transported and its protection, especially the containers. You might have seen when tomatoes are transported from one place to another in the craters, you might see so many tomatoes spilling out. When grains are stored in some of the rags, what happens? There may be some damage that has caused, which leads to spillage all throughout the road. So containers especially plays a major role in protecting the food at the time of transportation. Carriers used by the manufacturers are designed, constructed, maintained, cleaned, and utilized in a manner that prevents food contamination and minimizes microbial growth. So, what are the best practices over here in food good transport system? Transportation vehicles and containers should be designed and constructed so that they do not contaminate food, can be effectively cleaned and disinfected, permit effectiveness separation of food, provide effective protection from contamination including dust and fumes, can effectively maintain the temperature, humidity, atmosphere, and other conditions necessary to protect food from harmful or undesirable microbial growth and deterioration likely to render it unsuitable for consumption, allow any necessary temperature, humidity, and other conditions to be checked, should be designated and marked for food use only and be used only for that purpose. So why we are mentioning these criteria is there may be times where you have to transport foodstuffs which has to be maintained in lower temperature or even produce them in some under humidity. So temperature regulation in the vehicle that has to be transported plays a major role. So here temperature control of food transport vehicles definitely has a major role in the proper transportation of the food. The temperature controlled vehicles and containers should be capable of maintaining temperature. Chill units of vehicles and containers are not designed to reduce temperature. It is also important to ensure that food is refrigerated transport are already at an appropriate temperature prior to loading. So it is not that there is regulation of temperature, but then before transportation it has to be maintained in a proper temperature so that that temperature can be maintained in the containers that has to be transported. So that vehicle will be designed for that purpose itself. So consider the use of temperature monitors to verify conditions of transport. Ingredients and finished products requiring temperature control are transported in a manner to prevent temperature abuse that could result in deterioration of the product and affects its safety. Ingredients requiring refrigeration are transported at 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit or less, and the temperature is appropriately monitored. Frozen ingredients are transported at temperature that do not permit thawing, and the temperature is appropriately monitored. So thawing is nothing but bringing back these refrigerated items to normal temperature. So to bring refrigerated food to the room temperature is thawing. So we should make sure that this thawing doesn't take place at the time of transportation. Different methods of storage of foods. Here we'll be discussing on storage of processed foods. Obviously, processed foods do have merits and demerits. So here we'll be definitely discussing on the merits aspect or the positive aspects. Here processed foods are stored and handled under conditions that prevent damage and contamination. So mainly processing is done in order to prevent the damage and contaminations to the food products that is caused. Processed foods are transported under conditions that minimize physical, chemical, and microbiological deterioration. So, previously we have discussed what would cause the transportation to the food products. So, here processed foods are transported in such a way that care is taken in order to minimize the physical, chemical, and microbiological deterioration by the usage of some of the very good quality containers or some of the preservatives or chemicals that are used, which in turn prevent the deterioration that will cause to the food products that are processed. Factors to be considered while storing processed foods. So processed foods are stored off the floor and away from walls to permit access for cleaning and pest control. So the processed foods racks are kept away from the wall and off the floor because even below the empty space or place has to be seen in order so that there is no entry of pests or insects into the rack or into the food products, and also it will be easy to clean the rack. Frozen products are stored at a temperature that does not permit thawing. Thawing is nothing but bringing back the food to the normal or room temperature, but here care is taken in such a way that the frozen products are stored at the required temperature by the usage of refrigerators. Stock rotation is controlled to prevent deterioration and prevent spoilage of products that could present a health hazard. So stock rotation, as we have discussed, FEFO or first in, first out or first expired, first out, care is taken in such a way that the one that is available in the market fresh is given to the consumer, and making sure that the expiry date is not very near so that it will cause a health hazard to the consumer who has purchased. So as the expiry date approaches, the merchant takes care that, or the vendor takes care that it is given back to the food industry as well, in order to prevent the health hazard or harmful effects on the consumer. Defective products are clearly identified and isolated in a designated area for appropriate disposition. So obviously, as soon as they receive the goods, it is segregated, it is isolated, identifying some of the mechanical injury or quality quantity control. They take care, and so that again the whole or the good quality products are reached to the consumer. Method we'll be discussing under food storage is the household level of food storage. The goal of food storage is to ensure safe and high quality food. How this is achieved? So proper storage extends the shelf life of food, which depends on a food type, packaging and storage conditions, particularly temperature and humidity. On the basis of their stability during storage, foods have been divided into following categories. Before we discuss the categories, you might have come across at home your moms how they try to store foods. Example, fruits and vegetables, they make sure that it is refrigerated, available. Some roots and tubers are kept at room temperature itself. Milk and milk products, definitely they need refrigeration. Cereals and cereal products, they try keeping it in a dry, clean and cool place. As we continue, some of the categories under household food storage are perishable foods, semi-perishable foods and non-perishable foods. Discussing on the perishable foods here, these cannot be stored for more than 2 to 3 days under room temperature. Example are milk, milk products, meat, fish, fruits and vegetables are included in this group. So here it can't be kept for more than 2 to 3 days under room temperature. Definitely they need a refrigeration. If at all it is kept at room temperature, deterioration will occur for the reason it has high moisture content, and also degradation of proteins will take place, resulting in the spoilage of the food. The second category is the semi-perishable foods. These foods do not need to go in the fridge. They include bread, which we often store in a bread bin. We can store root vegetables and most fruits in a cool cupboard or rack. So the processed or a convenience foods, which can be stored for a week to a couple of months at room temperature, can be termed as semi-perishable foods. So comparatively, here, their shelf life is more, where it can be stored from a week to a month. Examples are baked foods, roasted, popped or toasted cereals and legumes, dehydrated foods, canned foods, frozen foods belong to this category. Dry foods also can be considered under this category. The last category is non-perishable foods. Cereals, dals, legumes which have been dried to less than 13% moisture are non-perishable in nature. So the main category under this or the main food group under this category is cereals, cereal products, pulses and legumes. Available, they are sun-dried. A reason 13% of its moisture content is less, and therein it avoids much of the microbial activities or growth and development in them. So they are considered as the non-perishable foods. Let's see the difference now. What is the difference between perishable and non-perishable foods? So here perishable foods are foods like fresh meat, seafood and ripe fruits, while non-perishable are items that do not spoil or decay. For example, canned foods. Reason sometimes they use preservatives, sometimes since they are processed well, their shelf life is more. All pasta types, sugar, flour, curds, and chips are air sealed. Spices are non perishable as well because of the nutritional content that is present in them, which will not allow for any of the microbial activities. Perishable foods is any foods that will spoil, rot, go bad very fast, such as within an hours. Most perishable, like dies quickly, foods will not even last a few hours without refrigeration or freezing. Milk, cottage cheese, sour cream, ice cream, meat, pork, chicken. Pretty much a perishable food is anything you would normally keep in the fridge or freezer for several days, otherwise, if you left it out, it would go bad. Non-perishables are dry and canned food, sometimes vegetables. So finally, I would conclude this chapter by saying you had enough of knowledge about the storage of foods. So storage of food mainly helps in maintaining the food economy, national level as well as in household level. And you also had enough of knowledge about distribution to consumers and how it is available all throughout the year, reducing some of the kitchen waste by preserving unused or uneaten foods for later use, preparedness for emergencies and periods of food scarcity or famine, protection from animal or theft. So here storage of different food is affected by some of the factors. So we had discussed on moisture content, humidity, temperature, storage structure, storage period, processing, hygiene conditions, etc. So here we also discussed on different types of facilities including the processors, packers, distributors, transporters, retail stores, that is especially we discussed on storage in warehouses, finally reaching to the consumer. So here processed foods are stored and handled under conditions that prevent damage and contamination, so which in turn minimize the microbial, physical, and chemical deterioration. And household storage, what happens here is it is very important to maintain the family economy, and as well as it is important in meeting the food needs of the family.
Thank you.